I was working in Haiti with a humanitarian organization when 4 names changed my life. Faye, Gustav, Hannah, and Ike. The names of 1 tropical storm and 3 hurricanes that struck Haiti one after the other in less than a month during the late summer of 2008. It was the first time that I had experienced such apocalyptic devastation firsthand. I had been working in the northern city of Gonaïves. It was hardest hit by the storms, and like much of Haiti, there were virtually no trees on the surrounding hillsides. As a consequence, they acted like funnels to catch the rain and sent it rampaging down to the farmlands below, where it picked up topsoil and headed towards the city. It took over a year to dig out several feet of compacted soil, deposit it on every street and the ground floor of every home and building in the path of the floodwaters. I helped with the recovery efforts, but I wanted to do something to address the root cause of the devastation. That's when I made a decision to plant trees. Granted, this was not going to be with my bare hands, but rather eventually working with small-scale family farmers, as I'll explain later. The decision to plant trees also honored my first mentor, the great forester and environmentalist Richard St. Barbe Baker. His example led to my 30-year career of international humanitarian service. He also inspired my lifelong commitment to environmental action, which included several years working to head up forestry programs on the part of the United Nations. What I didn't know at the time when I decided to plant trees was that it would lead to a revolutionary new business model, using tree planting to transform smallholder farmers into a self-financed and profitable force for change, and not just in Haiti. That term, smallholder, that refers to farms that are 2 hectares or less, which translates to 5 acres. I initially assumed that these were all subsistence farmers, growing just enough to feed their families and barter with what was left over for other basic needs, but everything on a no-cash basis. However, Gustav and Rosemary set me straight on this point. They were among the first smallholders I met in Haiti. They farm together on a small plot of land and raise onions, corn, bean, eggplants, depending on the season. And they sell their produce in local markets. But the mere fact that they sold their vegetables, plus some eggs from a few chickens, meant that they weren't subsistence farmers. But hardworking as they were really locked in a cycle of poverty because of low yields. It was heartbreaking, for example, to learn that not all of their 7 children were in school. At first, I assumed this meant that some of them had to stay home and work on the farm. That was not the case. It turns out that most schools in Haiti are private and require tuition starting in grade 1. The family simply couldn't afford to put all their children in school. So what really struck me about this family and other smallholders that I met throughout Haiti was that they were so completely marginalized and forgotten, just like generations before them. Now, as it turns out, there are some 500 million smallholder farms like these throughout Africa, Asia, and South America. Add up the people who live and work on those farms, and the total comes to 2.5 billion, which is 1/3 of the entire global population. Astonishing, right? But yields are consistently low, and poverty is their reality. But most smallholders actually function as small businesses and not on a subsistence basis. This made me realize that smallholders, like them, for all their challenges and difficulties, actually constitute the largest business category in the entire global economy. And here's the secret to everything that follows in this talk. Many of the poorest and most marginalized people in the world are not the problem, as we've long thought. It turns out that most are smallholders, and they, in fact, are the solution. Given a little bit of strategic support to function more efficiently as small businesses And these farmers have the potential to help feed the world and at the same time combat climate change and affect the status of women. While the Storm Quartet of 2008 was the reason, and Richard St. Barbaker the inspiration, my impulse to plant trees would not have become a reality if I hadn't met and teamed up with Haitian agronomist and tree expert Timothée Georges. We were both equally crazy about wanting to plant trees and decided that we should work together. Our first decision was to pay farmers to plant trees. To this end, we went out to seek sponsorship and approached a large global corporation with a tree logo. Yes, Timberland. They liked the idea, but pointed out that paying farmers meant that tree planting would stop the day the funding eventually stopped. And frankly, it was hard to fault them on their logic. This was when Timothée and I realized that we should approach smallholders as small businesses that needed help to increase their yields and profits, and somehow fit tree planting into that mix. The first challenge was that trees were already a part of the basic business model for farmers in Haiti. Trees cut to sell for wood and charcoal account for 70% of Haiti's total energy consumption. It turns out that deforestation was already a profitable side business for a lot of these farmers. So that represented stiff competition for sure, but Timothée and I realized there were actually three things that every smallholder farmer in Haiti needed in order to increase yields and make more money farming. They needed better quality seed, but they couldn't afford it. They needed good hand tools, but these were expensive. And they needed agricultural training in order to improve their farming techniques, but this was almost impossible to find. So what we did was to embark on a marketing tour, a marketing research tour. And this took Timothée and I to more parts of Haiti than most Haitians ever get to. And what was clear at the end of it was that farmers were willing to plant, look after trees in order to earn three things: the seed, tools, and training they needed in order to farm with greater profits. And all this was based on earning the inputs, no handouts. So we now had the basic formula for using trees to finance farming. It made trees more valuable in the ground than cut for charcoal. And we called this tree currency. Timberland signed on, and Timothée and I were now in business. Within a few months, we had the first 1,000 members, and thousands more on a waiting list. We were cranking out tree nurseries as fast as we possibly could. We finally had to put a cap on membership because we couldn't cope with any more members. 8 years later, and the Smallholder Farmers Alliance now has 6,000 members on 3,000 farms. And that's with, the reason that's 3,000 and not 6,000 is that it's husbands and wives farming together but recognized as separate members, part of our commitment to women's empowerment. We operate 30 tree nurseries in 5 different parts of the country. To date, our farmer members have planted over 6.5 million trees. And everything, farms and nurseries, runs on organic principles. So what about the farmers? To take the example of Gustav and Rosemary, whom I introduced earlier, their crop yields went up by 40%, their income more than doubled, and they were finally able to put all their children in school, including 3 who were the first in their entire extended family ever to attend high school. Trees planted by farmers have started to change the landscape. They're planted on farms, in orchards, as living fences around fields and along roads. But the biggest impact has been trees used to reclaim abandoned land and reforest areas that will eventually all connect together to form the first green belt of its kind in Haiti. But tree currency had another impact we hadn't anticipated. It triggered what can best be described as farm community ecosystems. It started as farmers began to ask for other things to be available using this tree currency. Adult classes for literacy, basic business training, a microcredit bank for loans for women farmers, leadership training for those women farmers, a community seed bank. And all of these things were implemented by the farmers themselves with just a bit of extra support and guidance. But most importantly, an agrarian tradition on the verge of disappearing was revived and given new life. Combit is a Haitian Creole word that means farmers coming together at harvest and planting times to work together. Mercilly described Combit best when she said, "We now work together for the common good, and I care about the community as I care about my family." About a year and a half ago, Timothy and I realized that we should connect the 5 separate farming communities that were part of our program. They'd never met, and we realized that they would benefit from learning from each other. We also realized that they all needed some help in marketing their produce. This kind of collaboration at a national level is called a supply chain. And we were just starting to build our supply chain when 2 export opportunities changed everything for us. A US company called Kuli Kuli asked if our smallholder farmers could grow moringa trees, and if women farmers could transform those protein-rich leaves into dry powder form. Kuli Kuli's moringa green energy shots are now on shelves at Whole Foods nationwide. Shortly after that, the Timberland Company realized that they could in fact change from being our corporate sponsor to becoming a customer and buying organic cotton from our farmers. This August, we began field trials to test different varieties of cotton. And Timberland has committed to buying up to 1/3 of their annual global cotton purchase from us, once we're growing enough and subject to price and quality. The Van Shoe Company just signed on last month on the same basis, and we're looking forward to other companies joining us in the near future. The 5-year plan for our new smallholder supply chain, designed to take advantage of these moringa and cotton export opportunities, involves gradually expanding our farmer network from 6,000 to 34,000 members. We're also going to be breaking new ground by using a blend of philanthropic grants and commercial investment to run the operation during those 5 years. But after that, the idea is that our smallholder supply chain will become a pure business with no more grants. Still planting tree currency, still delivering both farm and community services, but running entirely on revenue at that point. Because ultimately, the definition of sustainability has to include the word profitable. Now in Haiti, we are not just farming, we are impact farming. We don't just plant trees, we plant tree currency. We are not just involved in reforestation, we are pioneers in sustainable reforestation. And we will soon be ready to start exporting our tree currency and smallholder supply chain model beyond our borders. Imagine some of the poorest and most marginalized people in the world being transformed from the problem to a solution. Imagine using a combination of philanthropy and commerce to create profitable businesses that transform lives and communities. Imagine 500 million smallholder farmers, and remember that's 2.5 billion people throughout Africa, Asia, and South America, all contributing to improving food security on a global level by doubling their crop yields. combating climate change by replanting a large portion of the 56 billion trees that the planet loses every year at current rates of deforestation, supporting the advancement of women farmers by ensuring equal status and access to resources as a major contribution to empowering women everywhere. The smallholder impact farming revolution I envision will be principally financed from two sources: trees and you. Farmers will plant the trees. Your role has to do with the clothing you wear, the food you eat, the coffee you drink, the fragrance you apply. Choose products that are grown in whole or in part by smallholder farmers. And the good news is that there will soon be a new generation of apps that will help you to make these choices. You and trees can ultimately be part of financing the transformation of 1/3 of the world's population, helping to bring them out of obscurity and into the spotlight as they take a lead in helping all of us meet some of the greatest challenges facing humanity today. Thank you.